Hello team. My name is Mahak Vedi. I'm the founder of Revology, and we work basically with companies that are drowning in tools that their teams haven't been using.
And I'm Elle. I work with Mahak at Revology, and I'm also the director of RevOps at Snappy Kraken. We have both been brought in to fix systems for tools that probably shouldn't have been bought or that weren't rolled out well, taking people into consideration. So we just want to talk about how do we stop the madness and take the human experience into tooling implementation.
Perfect. So before we actually get started, on the chat, tell me, what does accessible tech mean to you? So consider everything that you know about tech, about rolling out, and then let us know. And we can call out some of these as we go. I didn't realize that the pop-up comes right on top of the screen. So I'm going to move that out of the way.
So we've only got 2 answers so far, so we'll give people another minute, but if you could go ahead and type in those answers, I'll end the poll and show the answers.
Great.
They're slowly trickling in. Okay, people are so quiet today, so we're going to end it with only 4 answers, so we stay on time, and at least we can view the, whoa. Hold, please. This took me to a place I was not expecting.
I feel like often we use these words like accessibility, but I don't think we all use the same definitions for them. So this is going to be interesting to see what people say.
I agree.
So ease of use, visible, easy to adoptable to the existing tech stack, multi-platform, mobile, desktop, agentic capable were our answers.
And then Megan says, easy tech for the purpose of my role. Nice. Okay. So I feel like we're touching on a lot of those within this. So when we talk about accessibility, we're not talking about a side quest. We're not talking about a bonus. We're not talking about only screen readers or helping people that are neurodivergent or have some kind of learning difficulties like dyslexia. We basically mean human-centered workflows. We want localized documentation, and we want tech to be useful for every type of brain that there is. So let's think about how most companies are built. They're built for HQ super users. They're not for a team in a different country who may not be English speakers, but all they get is a 30-minute walkthrough and hardly any documentation. We're not talking about the tech that covers the different time zones.
No, and then we also have neurodivergent folks and people that have trouble with context switching or reading documentation. They might have dyslexia, and they might have to have 47 tabs open, referencing an enablement document, looking at a training video, and that's not accessible to them. How are those systems set up to help them be successful, even though they may be technically perfect in a systems mockup?
That's exactly it. So when we think about software implementations, 70% of all software implementations fail because of poor user adoption. So when we talk about implementations failing here, this is, did the software do the thing that it was brought in to do? And 70% of the time, no, it doesn't.
No, and we've seen examples of that. I once worked with a company that brought in a customer success platform. It ticked all the boxes. It had the right features, did the right syncs. We signed the agreement. It took 30 months and 4 attempts to get it properly implemented and adopted. Try one. We purchased it without mapping how people actually worked. So they didn't want to move from Salesforce into this tool because they still had to go to the other systems anyway. Try 2. We were blocked by product because product didn't go in. So they only had 50% of their systems. And then try 3. We were trying to fix the spreadsheet that they built to work around all of this and put it in there, but they found it easier to work in the spreadsheet. So it took months and months and lot of meetings and a renewal based on a hope and a prayer to finally stand it up for how people actually worked and build a training and documentation program that they could all learn and all follow and all see value.
And that's a very typical story, right? Like this is not an exception from what we've seen before. There are tools that I've moved. So I used to do implementations and people will be moving, for example, from outreach to Salesforce back to outreach because the implementation wasn't done right and there's just flip-flopping between the two. There's one client that I've worked with and they were a global team, and part of their sales team was also in Japan. So though the majority was in the US and they had people in England, they also had an entire APAC team across the different APAC countries. But the Japanese team in particular was a pretty big one. And they continuously used to write messages on Slack being like, can we have training in Japanese? Can we have documentation in Japanese? And can we do office hours in Japanese? Because that's where people were getting stuck. And they asked for this for over a year and it just didn't happen. So to then expect that team to be able to get the same results from this tool that the American team, who had their documentation in English and who could get on a call at any time because that was their time zone, we cannot expect the same results from these two teams. But that's what was expected within that company.
And these are things that happen where integrations don't happen, adoption doesn't happen. You have the CX team on a different software, or you have the neurodivergent person, very much like myself, pulling everything in and building a custom GPT to try and figure it all out, working outside of the system that we've spent all of this time and money trying to implement.
I want to reiterate here, these aren't edge cases. This is the norm and this is everywhere. And that's what we need to work to avoid.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Elle.
No, you've got it. Data.
Say, what are the red flags that you look for when we look at? Yeah.
Yes, the red flags I look for, and I would be shocked and almost curious if you could drop in the chat if you see these two in your orgs, but we've all seen the Friday afternoon update Salesforce blocks or the Monday morning check customer data blocks, the shadow spreadsheets that people are sending or the Slack DMs, but then also that avoidance behavior where people are ticking through boxes just to get things done, but then the reports don't match up. So there's something that's like what's happening, or teams sharing GPTs, trying to reinvent the wheel to figure out the motion that the tech is supposed to support.
I have one more favorite to add on to this, and this is when the same tool is used in completely different ways in different geos because people were given different training or weren't given training in some geos because the time zones didn't match. So they just adapted it. C-suite said, you're going to use this tool, and they were like, yeah, okay, cool, let's do it. 60% of licensing fees are not leading to return on investment because only 40% of the features in software applications are used in the way that they, well, were supposed to. And that's usually the ROI that people are getting. That's a crazy, crazy number, right? So with implementations, employees are losing up to 22 minutes a day. And if you consider how big sales teams are, to lose 22 minutes a day because you can't find the information you're looking for or because you are trying to find documentation or trying to get through a messy CRM to find the leads that you're looking for. All of this adds up, and all of this does add up to a monetary value.
I think what really works is when you spend some time with the reps and you look at co-designing the software based on human feedback and the element versus what's technically perfect on paper, because there are so many gaps in that quantitative data that we only get through user interviews and walking through it with them. Don't build for a deck, don't build for the perfect system, but walk through with people. And one of my favorite things is to sit down and talk to that sales rep and say, can you walk me through your day and show me what you do? What is the one thing that makes you want to bang your head against a wall that you have to do all the time? Where are you stuck? What are the things that you typically have open? What's hard to find? What have you had to do for yourself? And I think the crazy part is you'll probably talk to a bunch of reps and every single rep will give you a different answer about what makes them want to bang their head against the wall or what their day looks like. And that's sort of the beginning user research piece to see, okay, based on all of these themes, what's working, what's not working, what can I solve for?
And it's so important to let go of this one-size-fits-all mentality, because usually we bring in some kind of software and either their team or our team will, when I say our team, the people who have had this software implemented, maybe enablement, maybe the RevOps team will go in and do this hour-long Zoom, and this Zoom is supposed to work for everyone. And within this hour-long Zoom, everyone is supposed to be present, not have that mental load of the day-to-day and all the emails that we need to send. And they're supposed to retain all of this information that is going to go in. So when it comes to me, I personally like working with short videos I like transcripts. I like screenshots. I don't work well personally in office hour sessions at all. I need my time to explore and then figure out how I want to learn. But this is then a mixture of things that I will be learning. If you tell me to go and watch an hour-long video, it's just not going to happen. What about you, Elle? What works for you?
I will not watch an hour-long video. I can be live on that call and nothing could be different, but if I'm not there live, my brain completely shuts down. But I like step-by-step instructions with a video because I don't want to watch a video. I want to skip the first 4 bits that I probably already know, go to 7, and then come back if I need to. So we all learn completely differently, but a lot of the time I find our training is one size fits all.
Because we all have different starting points that we're getting started with as well. If you have this technical aptitude and you've used 17,000 CRMs, getting a new CRM does not mean you don't need to start with what is a CRM. But if you haven't used it before and you've moved on from notebooks, then you do need to have that. And I think understanding people's ability of where they are at in their journey, and then also understanding what the best way for them to learn is, that's what's key. And research has shown that 87% of people have a multimodal learning style. So they need to mix up. Are they listening? Are they reading? Are they writing? Are they doing? But visual learning is more prevalent amongst neurodivergent folks, which I thought was really, really interesting because who would have thought?
So we have a good question. With all of the tech out there, are you all saying that we need to have multitudes of options in order to tailor to each person? Some people think that there should only be one solution.
We don't necessarily need to have multitudes of tech for different people. I think a lot of the time, the trap that we can fall into, that I personally fell into earlier in my career, is we get one tech and we roll it out as one size fits all. And we built it as one size fits all with a perfect process that doesn't necessarily support how people actually show up. And we don't necessarily train people in, multi-format, one size for many. And that's how we see a lot of those implementations fail. And that's how we see a lot of lack of adoption. So it can be one piece of tech, just really well set up and really mindfully managed. It may be 2, but that's where that user research that we talked about and quantitative data gathering really comes into play. I don't know, Mahak, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so if we think about our enablement that we've done as Revology, the main types of learning, like it says here, is auditory, reading, writing, and then doing. So if you consider one Zoom call, right? You have a Zoom. If people want to learn live, like you will, they can come on in, they can listen, and they can follow along on their screen. You've done auditory, you've done the kinesthetic. If people like me who don't learn on these live calls, who need the short videos, you can then cut up that Zoom. And in the age of AI, there's really no excuse, honestly. Cut up that Zoom into smaller chunks, put them on one site that people can look at, so one landing page, and then you have a transcript for notes. You can have a scribe as you click through and people that visual as well. So I wouldn't call it multitudes, but I guess it kind of is. But really, it was one Zoom call and one scribe, and that has led you to be able to have training data across all of these different types of learnings and different types of learners.
Very similar to support or customer success org that you would see many software companies doing.
That's exactly it. So many companies do not have knowledge bases for their internal users.
So I think that's a pretty good answer to our follow-up, which is if you don't have budget for enablement expert that has the technical knowledge in how people learn, what could be a less expensive solution? And I would just add or agree that doing once and using in many ways is such an effective and efficient way. Like you can even get on-demand learning going by having video clips or prompts to learn as people are doing things, because a lot of people have a much easier time learning as they do as opposed to learning before they need it.
And if you want to learn as you do, see if you can get a sandbox environment. A lot of companies will just allow a free sandbox. Outreach does, Salesforce does, so maybe start there. And one other thing in that question, if you don't have the budget for an enablement person, Elle alluded to this earlier, but as RevOps, we really need to know how to use every tool. Right, Elle?
Yep, it's true. And one of the things you can do that I personally do is you can build yourself a GPT so that when you're building, you can build yourself one to outline SOPs You can brain dump everything into it, have it spit out an SOP, and build yourself another one to build enablement materials against it to cover these are the 4 learning styles, taking into account language, neurodivergence, and prompt you. So you really have one build. You can get your technical documentation and your enablement materials in one. Kind of like Mahak said, it's really one Zoom call.
And with that, I actually also want to add, as you're getting into, so let's say that you as a RevOps person, I'm assuming you're a RevOps person, but you as an operations person have gone and done this and sat with your salesperson. You know how to use the tool. You know how they use the tool. But now you have understood how the tool should work in this ideal scenario, right? Because you helped implement it. You know how the team is using it. Kill the features that people aren't using. If there is something that is slowing people down, that is adding to tech debt and is never used, get rid of it. There's no reason to on unless you see an ROI for it, and then you need to train the team on why it's important again. I think in summary, it's proper enablement and proper communication for enablement that takes care, that understands people's learning styles, the way people's brain works, and that people aren't 100% present 100% of the time. I bet half the people here are multitasking right now. Do we have any other questions?
How do you know if it's worth fixing a tool versus replacing it?
It's a great question.
No, I think it's a great question. And, I think one of the first things is usage patterns, because if no one's using it, no one's complaining about it, it's probably already dead and you can replace it. It's going to be harder to have people come in and see the value in something they didn't see the value in than just, replicating it with a new tool and a new launch. But also the root cause, like, why is it broken? Was it a bad setup? Did we miss integrations? Was it a lack of training and enablement? If there's some glaringly obvious root cause, then it's probably worth fixing. But while we're fixing it, that's where the user interviews come into play, if we decide if we're going to or not. And then aside from that, probably just cost versus time to value. How long would it take to fix it versus how long would it take net new? Maybe just ripping off the Band-Aid is better. Other times, probably not.
So we had a client like this where they have a CRM. It is the messiest CRM that we've ever seen in our life. And we can absolutely go in and fix it. We can get rid of the tech debt. We can clean up the duplicates that are in there. We can train the team on how to use it properly so this doesn't happen again. But it would actually take us longer to do that than rip and replace with a completely new CRM. Whether we choose that one and start over with proper training, it's just a lot longer. So that cost versus time to value is mega, mega important, I think. So completely agree there. And then also, who brought the tool in the first place? If this was a person in C-suite, for example, and we've seen this before, where there's a mandate on we will be using this tool, and that person has now left. There's no proper sponsor, there's no proper enablement, then again, it might be better to start scoping out and figuring out what tool might be the best way to go. Or if you think you will still get your ROI, then I would keep it rather than a rip and replace.
What do you think gaining the trust of the end users, that you're looking at how difficult their life is and how to solve for it, how do you think that plays into the efficacy of training, if at all?
Massively. I think it massively plays into it, because in the end, we're all human, right? Life goes on, and sometimes you're having a bad day and you don't really care about fixing your forecasting in Salesforce. Like, it's just not important on the day, and that's totally fine. I think people are trying to do their best at work, and assuming best intent is the best thing that I think we can do, unless it's a repeated behavior and then it goes into a management thing. But if you can see that they are trying and they're trying their best, then there is some kind of friction for the reason that they're not able to use it. So let's isolate that and figure out what that is. If, though, it is a repeated behavior, then I think it needs to become a longer conversation. But I do feel like people are people. And if they're not able to use something, then that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing that we need to figure out how to fix.
So next question, we struggle with training, especially when we have a new change. We document and we do live sessions and people still struggle to get used to the change. Is it the will to learn or feeling like a waste of time, or is there a more creative way to make people more available to learn, like to engage them?
Change is hard. Change is hard for anyone. And we're creatures of habit. So for example, I know that when I wake up in the morning, I know where my laptop goes, I know where my screen goes, I know the side that my coffee goes on. If you come in and you mess with my desk, but it will completely mess up my day, you're telling people to change the way that they work and also asking for efficiency at the same time. And I don't think people want to be slower at their work. People have a thing that they are trying to achieve in the day or the week or whatever. By introducing a new tool, you've basically slowed them down with good reason. But until they can see the ROI, there is going to be a little bit of friction there. And that's a completely normal part of the process.
Well, I think too, learning is work. It's extra work. And a lot of the reps that we're working with, whether they're account executives, SDRs, CSMs, they have targets and lots of work. And this tool is being put in for a reason. So they're probably pretty at capacity and stressed. And when we take them through something, there is that user interview, change management component. Because instead of giving you a training session for work, if you can tee it up in a way that is, here's the problem of yours that we're solving, here's how it's going to change your day and make it easier, and here's how I want to make it accessible for you, including things like, here's your day now, here's what your day could be. Here's how difficult it is to do this motion now, here's how easy it could be. Training and help text and reference and all the bits Mahak mentioned earlier, having office hours, having those things. I think those are the things that, in my experience, have made the difference. That I'm not training on a tool. I'm showing you how I'm going to help you get your outcomes a lot easier and make your day-to-day better.
100%. And taking users on that journey from the beginning, rather than throwing the tool at them once it's all implemented. Because if people have a say, they are already invested from the beginning. So driving that excitement from, we're going to get a new tool within the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever that looks like, and this is what it's going to do for you, makes people mentally more prepared to then sit into that training and understand what the ROI is going to be early. Otherwise, you're telling them the ROI and you're telling them how it's going to change their day, and you're telling them what is also being moved out, because you bring a tool in, generally you're going to move something out as well.
Yeah, and doing those user interviews and that research too. All of these groups talk together on Slack or Teams or whatever system you're using. They're all helping each other with challenges. They're all working outside of the lines to make the systems work. So those interviews are going to build trust with the groups too before you even get there.
If you can get power users early, that's usually really useful as well. Because to your point, as everyone is talking on Slack, if you have those power users that can be internal promoters, it's not just one person, or especially an external implementer that's saying it, it's your team that's saying it. And I think it was Gong's training that at one point was like, and I don't know if they still say this because I haven't seen it in a while, but they did say, if people are resistant to the change, do an A/B test. This is a team that does use the tool. This is the team that doesn't use the tool. This is the difference. Now, do you want to use the tool? So rather than trying to heavy-handedly push it, see if they want to move on the journey with you. At some point, you might need to, but I don't think it's a first step.
And the more rollouts like this, the easier it will get, because people will feel heard and they will see the difference. The next successive rollouts will be easier.
So we had a good question about accommodating people with color blindness, particularly with charts, especially in board decks and whatnot, as systems do have a lot of hovers, but it can still be a pain. I gave some tools I use as a marketer, but how do you all think about that?
I'd like to add, with color blindness, dyslexia. Not every font is readable for people who are dyslexic. There are tools online. What we did for Revology is put in everything that we created as a visual. We put it into these tools. And you can see there is color blindness, but there are other sight challenges as well, where sometimes lines aren't as clear or letters aren't as clear unless they're a certain size. So put your, whatever visuals you're creating, especially charts, put them in these kind of, there are charities that run these sites as well. Put them in these, and you can see how with each kind of sight ability that people have, will they still be able to see what the original thought was? There are definitely some colorblind, for example, colorblindness that you know that red, green is common. So just don't use red and green together. And there are different shades of red and green that you can use that will let you get to your end result. But I do want to call out that there are some companies that use, for example, red and black. And it's like, no one can see your logo.
So are these colorblindness tools like platform agnostic overlays, trying to understand how scalable this is? And most of the tools I do use, you just, like if I take a screenshot of something that's being used pretty globally or some example that's going to be like a lot of dashboards in Salesforce, they look pretty similar because you're using your company's branding. Those you may need to work with marketing on a different color scheme.
Yeah, agreed. No, so that they aren't overlays. We've had to just put in screenshots. But I feel like once you've got your color scheme set, you just use the same one. And if you're creating a rainbow, just run the rainbow through it. Might be a business idea that you're onto there, though.
Most of what I've seen, you take examples and upload it, not add it to your system.
Yeah.
Good question. Any other questions about examples or things we've run into?
Or story. Did I just open a can of worms?
I had one gal who every time we changed something, she would just blow up. And I just knew on the day of the change to expect her to arrive at my desk when we were in person and just let her vent. It was awful. And then when she got used to it, she was okay. But yeah, change is hard. And I tried to be as empathetic as possible.
When we've done implementations, the feedback that we've heard is this wasn't even the major problem that we were dealing with. Like you're fixing a problem that honestly was a non-issue, whereas we have this other massive problem that has been completely ignored. And that's why I think taking the users on this journey with you, but getting that feedback and having a feedback has been massively helpful for us anytime that we've worked on a project, both implementation-wise, like for software, but any kind of change management, because that's what consulting is, right? It's all change management. But
I would love for you guys to kind of walk through, like if somebody calls you and says, my tech stack's a disaster, like what are the steps you go through as a project to determine what the priorities should be?
So do you know what we've actually found is people will either come in with a high level statement like that, my tech stack's a disaster, or I don't have any forecast reporting and I don't know what to do. Or you can get some very specific ones like everything else works, but my sales loft doesn't work. But what we found is that is more a symptom of the problem and often not the cause of the problem. So I'd say about 99.9% of the time, we start off with a maturity assessment. And that is to see, do your people and your processes and your tech stack, are they actually all aligned in whatever your goals are? If you're trying to meet a revenue goal, do you have a tech stack that can manage that and manage scalability? And do you have people that can manage that scale? And do you have processes that are not going to collapse because you had 3 extra leads the next day? Or are they just going to sit there in their inbound darkness and never get reached out to again? So we always start with a maturity assessment. Ours is pretty detailed, so it's got like 10 different sections. And then we go in and recommend, yes, sales loft isn't perfect, but also that's not perfect because you've got 10,000 duplicates in your HubSpot. So if we work with that, then we can fix this integration. Or hey, you don't have any forecasting, but that's because you're also not using these 15 things that really need to be part of the process. And everything's run on Excel. And going back to the whole change management thing, if you think about, and we're all operations people here, right? All of us have at least 100 different spreadsheets saved on our documents right now. And that's because that's our comfort zone. So if that's our comfort zone, of course, for the users, they're going to stick to their comfort zone as well.
Okay, so we have as a question. So right now I'm trying to solve an increasing the AI adoption where the features and projects may not be directly impactful immediately, but they are definitely beneficial in the long run. One of the main challenges here is introducing multiple additional elements in the sales workflow, which becomes somewhat essential after multiple external tools are plugged in for different purposes, such as transcribing, Tableau, CRM. What are your learnings in improving AI adoption for your sales and marketing team?
Elle, do you want to take that one?
I think at its core, the way that I've always looked at AI and my own learnings is outside of everything to do with AI, we have our fundamentals of our business. So our regular sales flow, our marketing motion, customer journey, life cycle reporting, all of those things. And that's where each team lives every day. And I think implementing it at different points you have to try and do it in a way that doesn't interfere with people's workflow, or if it does, they have to understand the why. Because similar to earlier, marketing has a pipeline number and they're trying to figure out a bunch of things in terms of multi-touch attribution, the right channels, all of those sorts of things, run campaigns. They're busy. Sales has a quota. So I think if you can put them in a way that are frictionless for the user, or alternatively, try and explain to the user why they're there and what the benefit to them later is, then that's really the only way to do it, because everybody's skeptical about AI. It could be something as simple as like Copilot if you're in HubSpot, or Einstein recommendations in Salesforce, but they really just have to hear what the journey is and what's required of them, I think. And then most people get on board because there's a vision.
That's it. If they can understand the ROI, it doesn't need to be immediate gratification, but they need to know what is coming and why. Having said that, if their workload has increased significantly because of this one change, that's a lot more difficult, right? People have a quota and people have a thing that they're trying to achieve. And if they feel like they're being slowed down and they can't understand the why, that adoption is not going to be successful. So again, taking them on that journey, but also understanding why there might be friction and trying to resolve that one part of the friction could be useful.
Okay.
How interactive people are being. I really appreciate that.
So anybody else have any specific questions they'd like help with? These consultants are right here for you.
Right. You can also reach out to us afterwards. I think you've already, Camilla, you've put in our LinkedIn's, right?
Yes, so they have been dropped in the chat. You will be hearing from Revology after this webinar, and please do take the opportunity to connect. And please do take the survey at the end of this. We'd love to know if these more interactive sessions are right up your alley. Thank you for attending. Do you guys have anything else you want to add before I let folks go for the day a little bit early?
I think it's just a reminder that generally we're not short on tools. People do tend to throw tools at a problem rather than figuring out the process that is broken in the first place, especially if you're bringing in something like AI, right? Everyone wants to use AI right now, but is your CRM in the right place? Or is your process and your people, are they ready to support it? So we're not short on tools, but we are short on usable, accessible systems. And that's what we need to try and build. Rather than, again, there are companies that we've worked with where there was one company, I literally saved them 54,000 in the year just by getting rid of things that did the exact same thing. If you have something that is already in place, that already has adoption, can you use that? And if not, take the users on that journey with you.
Yeah, I think one more thing too, we talk a lot about RevOps, and we have people, process, data, and technology as the 4 pillars. And I don't know about anybody here, but a lot of the time when I talk to folks, when we say what's the most important pillar, it's often data and tech. And it's really important as we're going through, yes, those are important and they power the systems, but try and remember the people, because that's what the data and tech is there to support.
Yes. We used to sell before Salesforce existed. We used to sell before we had even mobile phones. So the processes, and then put everything else on top.
So one maybe last question from Chris is, if you were coming into a new company, how would you start assessing areas for accessibility improvement in the tech stack?
That is an excellent question and could have been this entire webinar. Chris, reach out to me. I've got a template for this.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Steve's question, which I overlooked as the thank yous for coming in, which are delightful. How do you sell this at the executive level? And how do you convince them that deep thought is included in the need for ROI? That's the question. Sorry, I understood.
Yeah, another great question.
I'm not sure I understand the deep thought in ROI, but I could be having a moment.
If I'm understanding it correctly, most people are like, we need to implement this and we need to implement it today. We need to see results in the next 5 weeks. How do you convince them to take everyone else into account, to take the process and the people into account? If I misunderstood that question, please say so. Oh yes, ma'am. Okay.
I think there's a few ways to do it, and how, you have your quantitative data, you have that in your pipeline, and that's there. So you have a baseline for what technology in its current state can do. And then what you can do, and especially if you're in a smaller company or a more junior role, is you go have those interviews, you take your transcripts, you draw out the core themes. You can go into ChatGPT and say, hey, here are the core themes that I want to improve. Pull me some stats on how these can drive business outcomes. And there are so many stats from like McKinsey, Deloitte, Forrester Research, other agencies out there about how making these improvements can help fix your close rate, can help increase sales velocity. So that way, when you're going to your CFO and you're saying, hey, we need this software and it's going to help people work better. And they say, but yeah, how does it help you close deals? You will know exactly how it can help you close deals. And you can say, yeah, Forrester, Deloitte, here are the outcomes. Here's what that dollar value means for us and how we can increase revenue in the next 90 days. And I would be shocked if your CFO said no.
And remember that adding this accessibility doesn't necessarily mean slowing the process down. It means adding an extra step to take your people into account. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to extend anything by a week even. It's less than that.
Yeah. Like I have a client right now who has salespeople in spreadsheets because they find the CRM unusable, and accessibility is going to be part of the journey of figuring out why that is. There's lots of other reasons, but you can it's rare that an executive team will tell you we don't have any problems that we need fixing. And if you just include it as part of your process, a lot of times you don't really need the buy-in.
Yep. What was Chris's question?
Assessing areas for accessibility improvement.
Probably an it depends, but guidelines for approach to such an investigation would be helpful. Oh, if you were coming new into a company. Got it. I can send the templates to reach out. But generally, you would look at what are the tools that are in place. You want a list of all of them, and what are they supposed to do? So what was the ROI that they were originally brought in for, and what are you actually getting out of it? How are people thinking about it in the first, overall, right? So let's say that you are using both HubSpot and Salesforce. How are people actually? What are their views, the users' views on all of these tools? And then put that spreadsheet to the side. Unfortunately, I'm going to say spreadsheet here because that's what we live in. Put that spreadsheet to the side and map out the entire user journey. So what tools are your salespeople using, and map out that process. And then what tools are operations using, and map out that process, and then see if the two match. And if the two match, you're golden. They will not match, and then that's what you go in and fix. Elle, I think I covered everything there at a high level, right? And then there's, of course, user interviews across the teams. What were you calling the SMEs in this case? In which case, Heather, is that in getting buy-in? If we are getting, so for us, we call the SMEs either power users or SMEs, or yes, in sometimes champions, but champions I personally use less. I think as long as people know what they are, doesn't matter what word you use. You could call them superheroes. Power users, yes.
Sometimes it's where to pull somebody who's not a power user, because if you can convert them or get them on board.
That is a key point, actually. When you're doing back to Chris's question, when you're doing those intake interviews, generally, if you say, I'd like to do an intake interview, people will give you the highest performing reps. And that is not who you want to talk to. You want to speak to the ones that are lower performing, because they will tell you what the friction points are. And if you can fix those friction points, you're taking care of the whole team. If you only listen to the power users, you're looking at the 20% rather than taking the 80% with you.
Yeah, I always say, give me 2 super users, 2 who are completely opposed to it, and 2 in the middle. And if you can find me 2 opposed to it who still do well, even better. Because if I can get them converted, they gossip. Let's be honest. They're human.
And also to say, there are 80% of the time people who do oppose it, but because they still get results, leadership's like, yeah, whatever. We just wanted the number.
100%.
Yeah. And that's completely normal.
It's like the serenity, just accept what you can't change. That's going to be one of those. Yeah, I love it.
100%.
All right, so thank you for all of your participation. This has been fantastic. Yeah, 12 minutes left. How do you know the frictions
performance.
causing them to be low performers?
You ask them. Just
Mhm.
talk to them. This is what you're doing. What is stopping you achieving X? Why are you not able to use Salesforce? What was stopping you from making 20 calls when you only made 5? What was the problem? Was it the power dialer doesn't work for you? Was it there's too much noise in the background? Was it that you aren't able to connect? Are you not comfortable with a call script? Whatever it is, then you know what it is you need to fix. You just need to ask them in a one-to-one situation.
Yes, that's important. But I worked with a rep, for example. He was a great salesperson. We called him the dark horse because he didn't log his stuff. And we put sales loft in. And he was like, Elle, I hate sales loft. I hate it. I hate it so much. And I was like, why do you hate it? Well, because it doesn't work. Okay, show me why it doesn't work. He didn't have the Chrome extension installed.
Oops.
So, it sounds stupid, but this man had no activity for 6 months and was so frustrated. People wanted him to log in. He didn't realize there was a Chrome extension because he didn't want to come to the training because he didn't want to be talked at for 30 minutes. He was like, I'm going to go take a sales call. This isn't 30 minutes of my time. So sometimes, and that's the accessibility. Sometimes people just don't know.
Yep. Assume best intent. People are trying their best because they know they need to hit their number.
He got that Chrome extension and his conversion rate smashed. And then we were like, okay, what's he doing? So that's where it can help you too, because this dark horse that lived in his own little corner, all of a sudden we could look at what's he doing and replicate it across the rest of the team.
We had a client at Revology where they had a sales team of about 6 people, and there were 2 people who were just not meeting their activity numbers. But the team was pretty new. None of them were going to hit quota because it was a long sales cycle and they'd only just started, so this was quite early on. 2 of them were making like 5 calls or sending like 5 emails out a day. The top performers were sending out something like 200 a day. So when we wanted to do these interviews, those were the 2 that were sent to us. And they were literally using their Gmail to type everything out instead of using sequences. And they were using their phone to make calls instead of using the call software because both of them missed the training on it. Neither of them went to watch the recording. They also didn't have the SalesLoft extension either. And they knew cadences exist. They just didn't know what they could do. So new process, people didn't go on the training and they completely missed it. And the way that they were then viewed at work was as either lazy or low performing. And they were neither of those things.
Yeah, Sudhin says, I don't think they're going to own their problems because they don't want to get fired. Do you think they're going to say the truth? And my question back is, why does it matter if is their manager on your case because they feel like it's the system's fault? Because chances are the manager understands who on their team is low performing and why. I don't know that, I think it's good to try in earnest to assist these people and figure out what the problem is. But if it's truly somebody who just isn't getting the job and doesn't understand the factors there, like ICP, the selling methodology, all of these things, their manager is going to know about it. But would you add anything to that besides my little pep talk about?
No, absolutely. I think people do worry about getting fired, but as long as they can see that you are trying to help them, even if they lie to you, they've lied about a friction, they've lied about something to fix. And as long as that conversation is open, and it's not just a, why aren't you performing? It's more like, how can I help you? Person. As long as everyone is feeling included, I think that's an easier thing to go on. I would not expect that you go and speak to someone tomorrow and they're going to lay out their life story. That will not happen. But if you can show them small wins, that's when the bigger wins will start to come in.
I think that's where that talk track of what is cumbersome, what is frustrating. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you want to change? What makes you want to bang your head against a wall? People will tell you those things, and they will be small things. They're always a small, silly thing. Like they're like, oh, we don't have this one particular loss reason, and I don't know what to do, and it's all wrong. Or, oh, I can't see my next steps in this deal view. You will hear those things in those interviews, and those are things that you can correct. I think the more you do that, the more that they will be honest and you'll learn things. At the end of the day, as you build trust, they will lean on you more to help you understand and have what they need to do their jobs.
Absolutely. I always said this is a safe place. I'm not going to say who said this to me. I might go get some validation from other folks to make sure that I need to escalate this issue to your boss. But that's even better because I'm not saying it was you that first brought up the issue. I'm saying multiple people have said that this is a problem. And when they push me, as they always do, who said that, I'm not going to say anything. And that gets around. You build trust. It's a really great practice. I feel like it always served me super well.
In a previous company that I worked at, and this was not as a consultant, I actually used to work at this company, for each user of each different type of main system, so our Salesforce, our outreach, and then we had I think it was Confluence at the time. Anyway, they used to send out a form, and it was an anonymous feedback survey, and it was like 3 questions. Do you think you're supported by this tool? Does it help you do your processes? Yes or no? And then the magic wand question was in there. So in every intake interview I always ask the magic wand question as well. If I could wave a magic wand to fix something for you right now, related to this tool or not, anything in your workflow, what do you want me to fix? And those are the answers that are the most interesting. But we used to get that survey once a quarter for every main tool that we used. They're going to tell us everything that is wrong, and we're going to end up with a big laundry list. We have to isolate the priority and root causes. Yes, this is a big challenge. If you interview 10 people and 5 people are saying the same thing, you know what the priorities are.
Research or where to research. Why?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes there are tiny projects, like Elle was saying. We had one where they had some kind of pick list, and the pick list was not in any kind of logical order. So we just put it in alphabetical order. It took us 10 seconds, people were happy. And then other times it is a lot bigger, like forecasting isn't correct or whatever else that looks like, but there are ways around it.
I love that, Chris.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm looking forward to the day when AI can suggest a solution and you just verify it, right? I think this is what's going on. You just verify. One day we'll get there.
I think it's that far.
I
but
know.
It's also really cool. It turned into an ops therapy session, but each RevOps person has their own little fixes that we've implemented like this, and it's so cool when people share it because it's like, oh well, I'm going to do that now.
I love stealing. I give credit.
But that's how we learn from each other.
Yep. Right. Unless we have any other questions.
I love it.
This was a really nice, wholesome chat. Thank you, team.
I love. I've got this client just really on my mind that just keeps like the examples you give. I'm like,
You're also ops. You also get the therapy.
Yeah. Yes. Although most of the time you're giving it to your clients, am I right? Not your fault. You did nothing wrong. It made sense at the time. I swear to you.
It's not just me.
Yeah, it's everyone. Thank you, everyone, so much for sticking around. I hope you got tons of value out of it. Please do connect with us on LinkedIn. I know all of us would appreciate your outreach, but especially our friends at Revology Consulting. Thank you both so much for sharing your knowledge. I hope everyone here has a fantastic rest of their day.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being here.